So looking at this application, working with an arrow, so it says find the unknown length. So it looks like what they're asking us to find is the distance from here. Let's get this to work for us again. So there's a distance from here all the way over to here, this distance here. So that's going to be the unknown length. Well, we know that the total length of the arrow is 16.5 inches. And we know that these three lengths here should add up to 16.5 inches. So what we kind of think upon is the unknown length plus the 3.5 plus the 1 1/4 must add up to the 16.5 inches. Now, what I could do first, though, is figure out, well, what the heck is 3.5 plus 1 1/4? So if I add those together, 3.5 plus 1 1/4, and a lot of times I add down the page. Notice that if you know your tape measure, 1/2 and 1/4 would be the same thing as 3/4. Or again, you can get a common denominator by multiplying the top and bottom by 2 here to create a 4. So this is going to be really the same thing as 3 2/4 plus 1 1/4. That's going to be the same thing as 4 1/4. So really what we have is this unknown length plus 4 1/4 inches must add up to 16.5. Well, to get 16, we need like a 12. But to get a half, we would need another quarter. So to me, 12 1/4 plus 4 1/4 would be 16.5. But also what we do is we can think backwards. And if we just subtract 4 1/4 from the 16.5, that will give me the remaining distance. So you can also do this as a subtraction problem. Notice how, again, I'd have to rename this the 1/2 to fourths. So I could change this to 16 2/4 and this 1/4 here. So notice how we're subtracting 2/4, lose a fourth, would give me 1/4. 16 minus 4 would be 12, 12 1/4. Okay, so we can kind of pick up on that. Now, if you want to, you could just use your calculator and just recognize that all I gotta do is start with the 16.5 and subtract 1 1/4 and subtract 3.5. Now, we can also use decimals, if you will. So 16.5 is the same thing as 16.5. So if I go 16.5, that's the same thing as 16.5. So if I subtract then 1 1/4, remember a quarter is 0.25. So I could just go 1.25. And then 3.5 is the same thing as 3.5. So if I subtract then 3.5, that'll give me then this 11.75. Did I do something wrong there? This was 3/4 here, wasn't it? It's always good to check your math. So if we change this to a fraction, it's going to give me 47/4. So my answer was wrong. So let's back up here with my math. I said it correctly and then wrote it down wrong, and then it all fell apart. Does it happen to you? Okay. So back over here, notice how when we did 3 2/4 plus 1 1/4, we should have said 4 3/4. So it should have been 4 3/4. So what I have then is this 16.5, and we have to lose 4 3/4. Now we can give myself a little bit more room here. So let's just rewrite this over here. 16.5 minus 4 3/4. So 3.5 plus 1 1/4 should have been 4 3/4. Now, when I subtract, though, doing it, doing this math here on paper, it kind of takes on this look. So the 1/2 has to turn into 2/4 because you have to have a common denominator. So if I multiply this by 2, I got to multiply this by 2 to keep an equivalent fraction. So that turns into 2/4. So I have 16 and 2/4, and I got to subtract 4 and 3/4. So 4 and 3/4, notice that I cannot go 2/4, take away 3/4. So you actually have to borrow from the 16. So if I borrow from the 16, this becomes then a 15, and you have to add the 1 to the 2/4. So this becomes 15, and then you have to have this 1 and this 2/4 here, like that. And then you're subtracting this 4 and 3/4. But this 1 and 2/4 has to look like a fraction. So how many fourths are actually present? Remember, 1 stands for 4/4. And if you add 2 more fourths, 1 and 2/4 is actually 6/4. So this 1 and 2/4 has to actually change into a fraction. So this turns into 15 and 6/4 minus this 4 and 3/4. So now the math is workable on paper. 6/4 take away 3/4 is 3/4. 15 take away 4 would be 4. I'm sorry, 15 take away 4 would be how much? That'd be 11, wouldn't it? So 11 and 3/4. So notice on my calculator, I'm getting 11.75, which is 11 and 3/4. Notice how, though, when I changed it to a fraction, it did not change it to a mixed number. To change that to a mixed number, I can use my calculator. So how do I change 47/4 to a mixed number on a calculator? This is where this F1 key comes into play. So if I hit the alpha button, hit the y equals button, notice number 3 will change a fraction into a mixed number. So if I move this down to number 3, it'll change it from a regular fraction into a mixed fraction. Notice how that does give me 11 and 3/4 if I use a calculator. So the gist of this is there's all kinds of ways of doing this problem. One way is actually just keeping it in the form of decimals and just knowing the relationships between common fractions and common decimals, because I recognize 11.75 is the same thing as 11 and 3/4. And that eliminates a lot of math that we can be doing on paper. But notice how it can be done using all fraction math as well, just with a little bit of manipulation. So feel free to watch this video again and see if that helps you understand how to work with mixed numbers.